So you've probably heard the terms international relations and international politics thrown around, maybe even used interchangeably. And hey, they sound pretty similar, right? But what if I told you they're actually two completely different lenses for looking at the world? One's a wide angle and one's a zoom. Let's dive in and really unpack what sets them apart. We're going to start right here. Take a look at this scene. It seems pretty ordinary, doesn't it? Just a worker changing the price of fuel. It feels like it's a million miles away from all the big summits and treaties we hear about on the news. But believe it or not, this is the perfect place to start. Because that image, it leads us straight to this question, a really big one. How do things happening on the other side of the planet actually end up affecting you? Your job security, the price you pay at the pump, what things cost at the store, all of it is tangled up in this global web. So how do we even begin to make sense of it all? Well, to answer that, we've got to start with the widest possible view. We're talking about the big, big picture. And that brings us to our first major concept, international relations. So what in the world is international relations, or IR as it's often called? The key word you've got to remember here is broad. Seriously, IR is the study of the entire international system. We're not just talking about presidents and diplomats here. We're talking about everything. Economic deals, cultural exchanges, tourism, sharing technology, and of course, military alliances. It's the whole shebang. Now, what's really fascinating is that even inside this huge field, people see things differently. You've got the old school state-centric view. It basically says, look, it's all about governments, diplomacy, war, and peace. That's it. Then there's a more modified view that says, okay, yeah, states are the main players, for sure, but you absolutely cannot ignore things like economics. And then you've got the transnational view, which is probably the most modern. It argues that today you have to include everyone in the picture. Huge corporations, global organizations, even powerful individuals, they all have a role to play. Okay, so if international relations is that big, wide-angle shot of the entire landscape, what happens when we zoom in? What happens when we really focus on one specific part of that picture? Well, that's where international politics comes into play. International politics, or IP, is way more focused. It's not a separate thing. It's a specialty within international relations. Its entire job is to zero in on the purely political stuff between countries. How do they compete? How do they work together? It's all about the political game they play on the world stage. This chart just nails the difference. Let's use a real-world example, say the global response to a pandemic. From that broad international relations perspective, you'd study the whole ecosystem, right? The scientists sharing data across borders, the breakdown in global supply chains, the cultural impact. But the international politics lens, it zooms right in on the power plays. Which country used vaccine diplomacy to make new friends? How did different nations fight over resources to boost their own political standing? You see, it isolates the political chessboard from everything else happening around it. Here's a simple way to think about it that makes it all click. Just imagine your life in your own town. All your daily interactions at work, at the store, with your friends, that's your international relations. It's your entire social world. But your direct dealings with the mayor's office or getting involved in a local campaign, that's your international politics. It's a very specific, power-focused part of your much bigger life. So if international politics is this specific, focused game that countries are playing, what's the prize? What's the currency that everyone is after? It all boils down to one simple 5-letter word: power. And this isn't some new idea. This quote from Hans Morgenthau, who's basically a giant in this field, just gets right to the heart of it. He argues that what you're really watching on the world stage is a constant struggle for power and for peace. Everything else is just commentary. And this is the really critical idea to grasp. Power is everything. Sometimes countries use power to achieve a goal, like winning a trade deal. In that case, power is just a means to an end. But for a lot of thinkers in this field, getting more power is the actual goal. It's the end itself, because more power means you're safer, and you have more say in how things go. But here's the thing. Power isn't just one thing. We can split it into two main types. First, you've got hard power. This is the stuff you can count. Soldiers, tanks, economic size. It's the power to force someone to do what you want, using things like sanctions or military threats. And then you have soft power, which is all about attraction. It's getting other countries to want what you want because they admire your culture, your values, or your ideas. It's getting your way through persuasion, not coercion. Okay, let's pull all these threads together. We've looked at the wide-angle lens and the zoom lens, so how do they actually work together to help us make sense of this one incredibly complex world we live in? If there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this right here. International relations shows us the what. It's the whole messy, beautiful picture of every global interaction imaginable. But international politics explains the how. It's the specific and, often ruthless game of power that countries are playing inside that bigger system. To really get what's going on, you need both lenses. And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about. In our world today, with everything changing so fast, new technologies, global crises, alliances shifting under our feet, which lens do you think will be more important tomorrow? The wide-angle view of IR or that sharp, focused zoom of IP? It's definitely something worth mulling over.